Hello and welcome to Where Do We Begin? I'm Georgia Nanscawen, former Australian hockey player and captain of the Essendon Vflw team.
Thanks for that, Georgia. My name is Harper. My co-host is Lockie Hawa. No, he's not here. Forgot about that. Yeah, it's very strange. It's very strange. Hopefully, the podcast is just as good as usual. You have to listen and find out. Let me know once you've listened. Tell me if the podcast is just as good as its usual high standard. Of course, it's with Georgia Nanscawen, the Essendon Vflw captain, best and fairest. A whole lot of amazing accolades. 200 games plus for the Hockeyroos as well. 205 to be specific. She's an amazing athlete, amazing person to chat to. So, it's actually got a bit of a special guest as well this episode, so keep on listening, and I hope you all enjoy it. It should be really good. We reckon we just get straight into it. Let's go! Now, to our listeners, I'll be honest here, the more we have hockey people on this podcast, we haven't had too many, but the more we have hockey people on this podcast and the more I kind of watch and see stuff about the Hockeyroos, the closer the Hockeyroos become to being my favourite Aussie national team. And this guest is one who's broken all kinds of records for the Hockeyroos. But I've got to say, just moving from hockey to footy, just quickly, since Lockie's been gone, we may have just quietly become officially an Essendon podcast. We've had so many Essendon players on the show, and this guest might just be the tipping point, really. She's the captain, reigning best and fairest, and a star herself of Essendon's women's team. It's Georgia Nanscawen. Welcome, Georgia.
Thanks very much for having me.
Yeah, pleasure to have you on. So, obviously, hockey, footy, lots of stuff to cover. Might start off with the hockey side of things, because that was kind of the first thing, obviously. So, hockey, it's not the most most played, most watched sport in the country. Obviously, it hasn't got massive exposure. It's not tiny, but still. So, you started playing hockey when you were about 5, I believe. So, why did you want to become like this Australian national hockey player from such a young age when it's not really the most kind of, not many kids dream about being a hockey player, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, so I got into hockey through my parents, which I think is probably one of the most common routes for hockey players. It's a family connection. So my mum played hockey, currently still does play hockey, and my dad was the manager of the team. So, I was pretty much from the moment I was born was down at her club around the team and with a stick in hand, and as soon as I could walk was hitting balls around. And so I think it was just a natural progression for them to put me into a hockey team. So when I was 5, I joined the Essendon hockey club in the under 9s, and pretty much took it from there. But I think most hockey players, it's probably either family or maybe through school or through friends. Mine was definitely my parents got me in, and I ran with it.
Yeah, we spoke to the legend Alison Annan about fairly similar things. So, did you get to watch much of the Hockeyroos and the Kookaburras even growing up?
Yeah, not really, to be honest. As you say, it's not one of those sports that are on TV every weekend. They're still trying to grow it now to get on TV a little bit more, but there wasn't a huge amount of exposure. So, it was probably more of just, it was a sport that my parents played, I started, and I really enjoyed it. And obviously being aware that you could go and play for Australia and go to an Olympics and stuff was something that, it was quite a little carrot dangling at the end there, but it certainly wasn't the thought when I first started playing. It was just something that I loved to do, and it all sort of took off from there.
Yeah, and a little fact that's been said in just about every interview you've done that I've heard, you've made your Hockeyroos debut a day after your 17th birthday. So obviously playing for the national team at kind of such a young age, what were the skills that you had? I'm not really a hockey expert, but what were the skills that you had that made you so noticed at such a young age?
I'm probably still asking that myself, really, but I was always a good team player. I through back through playing with the boys. So I played with the boys up until under 15s, and At that stage, I was playing a pretty central role in the midfield. My passing was one of my strongest abilities, and being able to bring my teammates into the game. And I guess, playing against the boys then, and then playing with women. I think I was 14 or so when I jumped up to playing against women at quite a high level. I was always able to hold my own, I guess, against people that were a lot older and more experienced with me. I joined the VIS, I think I was 15 or so, and then sort of once you're in that environment, you have people looking at you. And I think it was a camp when I was 15 or 16 that the Australian coach was actually at, and he must have seen something, a little spark in me or something that he quite liked. And it kind of all went from there. It was still a huge shock to be picked at that age. As you said earlier, it was a dream from pretty early on to play for Australia, but I never expected it to be at the age of 16, 17. It was pretty left field, but very exciting nonetheless.
Yeah, and finding out about the call-up, you're on the tram to Melbourne Central. Yeah, you get the email, flick out your phone or whatever, and then get off the tram, meet your mum, and just kind of this outpouring of emotion I've heard. Yeah. That's pretty special, hey?
Yeah, it was. As I said, it was a bit of a shock. I'd played in our national tournament, so played for Victoria in the senior women's team that year, and I, to be honest, even trialled for that team as more of a bit of for a bit of experience. I didn't expect to really get much of a go, still being so young in the senior women's team, and I obviously did all right and showed some promising signs that the Australian coach identified, and received the email when I was on the tram, and certainly wasn't expecting anything, and got off and got nearly hit by a couple of cars as I ran across Elizabeth Street to mum, and it was a pretty big outpouring of emotion, and obviously thrilled, but it was the start of a pretty big journey after that.
Yeah, I feel like that's something that's kind of not talked about too often, maybe more so now, but especially for young players, the kind of thrill and shock in particular cases of getting a call up for whatever sport, whatever team it is at such a young age. And like being in high school for you, amazing.
Yeah, well, it was obviously there was the initial excitement and shock, and then there was what does this mean next? So as I say, I was still at high school. I was in year 11. The Australian team is based over in Perth. So initially it was like, well, how are these logistics going to work? Like, am I going to finish school? Am I going to move straight to Perth? These are all the things that we sort of had to start thinking about. And the coach at the time, Frank Murray, was very big on, you're not going to make millions of dollars being a hockey player. It's pretty important to finish your education and get all that right first. So he encouraged me I stayed at school through year 11 and 12, and I was still picked in teams to travel away. So I missed about 13 weeks of year 11 and 14 weeks of year 12 travelling away with the team, but was still living in Melbourne and would just fly in, fly out basically. So that itself was a big challenge, and I was very lucky. I had very supportive school and teachers and parents as well to get me through that.
Yeah, but it's got to be really hard to not have your kind of academic achievement compromised by that kind of thing, like missing 27 weeks in VCE. That's like not many people do that, and it's just got to be a massive challenge, eh?
Yeah, it was. I guess a couple of my skills that I do pride myself on are my time management, my organisation, and so I was able to balance it reasonably well as can be expected in that circumstance. So I took all my books away with me. I was doing visual communications and design in year 11, 12. So I had like big folios with me with all my stuff. I had to bring all my papers and stuff away with me. But yeah, so it was a challenge, but it's something that now I look back on and I'm quite proud of how I was able to not just get through VCE, but do it quite well, and while also juggling travelling around and playing for Australia.
Yeah, looking back on it now, is that the kind of main struggle that you had to deal with through your childhood, kind of teenage years in general?
Yeah, I guess. I was 16 when I was first selected, and so you do miss out, I think, on a lot of those teenage years. The 18, the 18th, the 21st. So I was away and missed a lot of those. The school, proms or whatever. I miss those as well, but. They're all the little sacrifices you make, and in the end, I wouldn't give any of that up for the opportunities that I got to have. I think if you asked most people whether you'd like to travel the world playing the sport you love, or going out and having an 18th party, most would jump at the opportunity to get to travel around and experience those sort of things. So certainly no regrets with that. I'm very fortunate for those opportunities.
And traveling around from such a young age, being in this kind of world-class elite environment, one of the best teams in the world in Australia, of course, that's got to be a huge pressure. And being around all these women that are like adults and you're still a teenager, again, that's got to be pretty tough.
Yeah, I mean, it was. It was probably, as I sort of mentioned earlier, I started playing against women at quite a young age. I actually played hockey in my mum's hockey team when I was, in my early teens. And so from an early age, I was used to playing against and playing with people a lot older than me. So I think when I did make that jump into the Hockeyroos, it wasn't so much of a shock that everyone was, that much older. And again, I feel like I've got a pretty level head and probably a little bit older than my years. So I was able to cope all right. But yeah, as you say, it is always quite a challenge. And I certainly had to grow up very quickly. Moving across to Perth once I finished school at the age of 18 was one of those biggest moments where I really had to grow up, and probably shaped sort of who I am now.
Yeah, and kind of no matter how old you are, I think it's a bit of a challenge living in Perth, not the greatest city in the world for me. But so kind of obviously travelling the world for your job, debuting in South Africa, of course. Had you done much travelling around the world growing up at all?
Yeah, not really. A few little family holidays to New Zealand, Fiji, those sort of, but nowhere. That was pretty much the furthest I'd ever been. So, to jump on a plane and go 8 hours, that was the furthest I'd ever been at the time, on 8 hours on a plane to South Africa. And I guess the cultural shocks as well with a country like that. I remember messaging Dad as I got off the plane and we got on the team bus to the hotel, and I said, messaged Dad, and God, there's a man with a shotgun just sitting on the street. Like, they're these crazy things that were so completely new to something. A 16-year-old who hadn't gone that far out of Australia, and to get to do that and experience those things. I feel very lucky to have done.
I'm really interested in the kind of what it was like being in South Africa in 2009. They had the Soccer World Cup. I'm a big soccer fan. So what was the whole experience and the country like, really, that from your perspective?
Yeah, so the World Cup was there. So the stadium, it was in Durban. The stadium was there. They had all the merchandise, and they were getting up and about, and pretty excited for that. I guess, as I mentioned, just the cultural change, the warnings of not to go around walking at night. It was all quite eye-opening. But there was certainly a lot of a buzz around with the soccer coming up, and just one of the many. It was actually a tour to South Africa a couple of years later that I had got ATM scammed at it. So a couple of we went in with a couple of the girls to the bank, little ATM outside the bank, and put the card in. And next minute we were approached by two big men who told me to put the card back in, and press a couple of buttons and there goes a couple of grand. So those complete, like, those experiences, certainly very eye-opening, and got a few stories to tell from those.
But I'm sure you must have been thrilled with the start, really, specifically scoring on debut, and in the long term, or breaking all kinds of records, like youngest person to 100 Hockeyroos caps, youngest person to 150 Hockeyroos caps, all kinds of things. So is that something now that your hockey career is kind of done and dusted, is that something that you look back on with fondness, or is it just a bit of a number, really?
It's certainly something I'm very proud of. Scoring on debut, I probably should have stopped there because I didn't score too many after that. It took me a little while to get the next one. But, that's always something. There's only, a handful of players that can say that they've done that. So that's special. The numbers, I mean, it's probably something now, and as I get older, I'll really look back on and say, I'm certainly very proud of that. And it's, something I certainly never thought that I'd achieve, and it's not when people kind of bring it up, and I think the people bring it up that I really sit back and go, oh yeah, that was quite, a special thing to say that I've done or to have achieved. But I think it takes a little bit of that external noise for people to actually tell you, that's a great achievement, to go, oh yeah, no, it actually is. So.
Yeah, and I'm sure another kind of big achievement, the Olympics. I'm sure they're coming up, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Hopefully, yeah.
This year, and some big rumblings going on at Where Do We Begin HQ in terms of the Olympics. But I'm really interested in kind of for all the different sports, how the Olympics stack up against other tournaments, like a World Cup. For soccer, the Olympics is kind of nothing compared to the World Cup, and even compared to stuff like the Commonwealth Games, which is pretty big, and the Champions Trophy, which you got a medal in, I believe, as well. So how do they all stack up against each other? What's the biggest for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think Olympics really for any athlete's the pinnacle. That's the ultimate goal. To win an Olympic gold medal, I think, trumps anything else. Commonwealth Games, again, it is a massive achievement, but because it's not quite on that same world scale, it's never going to be quite up on the same pedestal that an Olympics is. In terms of hockey, probably the World Cup is another one that's ranked really highly because of the quality of teams that are in it, and I'm fortunate enough to win a silver medal at the World Cup, as well as the Champions Trophy, and then gold at the Com Games. But yeah, I think every athlete would probably tell you that an Olympics and an Olympic gold is the ultimate pinnacle. And yeah, hopefully it goes ahead this year, and we'll have something to sit back and watch on our TVs. But again, it's probably one of those things that I don't fully appreciate until people say, oh, you went to an Olympics, that's pretty amazing. So they go, oh yeah, no, actually it was. And I think because we are in London, which was the Olympics I competed at, we didn't medal. We finished fifth. I think because of that little disappointment of not medaling, it's something that maybe I haven't appreciated as much, that the fact of actually going was quite fantastic. And as I said, it's not till many years later and people say, oh, did you go to Olympics? And I'm like, yeah. And they're, oh, that's pretty cool. Actually it was pretty cool. So I think the reflecting back on it is special.
But I'd assume it's pretty frustrating. I know in the 2012 Olympics, so you were knocked out on goal difference in the group stage, not getting to the semi-final, and there was a 0-0 draw in the last group stage game against Argentina, who finished ahead of you, qualified for those semi-finals. So such a fine margin. That's got to be something like, if one kind of hit of the ball or whatever you call it went the other way, or just one tiny piece of luck switched, you could have been a medalist, gold medalist, silver medalist, right up there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was probably why it was so heartbreaking at the time. Our first game against New Zealand was they scored in the first, and obviously New Zealand, Australia, huge rivalry. They scored in the first few minutes of that game, and we lost 1-0. And it was pretty much that slow start that set up our whole Olympics. We had a couple of other games that we only just won. We probably should have won by more. So yeah, as you say, a goal here or there, or it could be a centimetre that could have been the difference between making the medal rounds and not. So yeah, that was a pretty tough pill to swallow. And the Olympics, it only comes around every 4 years. You have a lot of it works on an Olympic cycle. Like our whole hockey program worked on a 4-year cycle, and so it's all building up to that moment. And for you to not achieve what you were after in that moment is pretty tough. But as I said, it's probably only now reflecting back and actually recognising the achievement for what it was to even go there. But yeah, at the time it was it was pretty heartbreaking.
Does it still play in your mind, the disappointment at all? 9 years on?
Yeah, probably not so much anymore. As I said, it's probably more. At the longer it's gone on, you recognise the fact of there's not many people that can say they've been to an Olympics. And I'll certainly be very proud of that. And the fact that we didn't medal doesn't define that, or how my career went, or how we look back on the team. Of course, it would have been nice to have that one on the wall with a few of the others, but it's certainly not a defining factor.
Yeah, that's good. And I promise we'll get to some more positive things in a sec. But the next Olympics, you've spoken about it personally for you as heartbreaking, and it would be for anyone, really. So do you want to go into kind of what your experience of that Olympic Games was?
Yeah, so obviously 2012, I competed, and so then you kind of naturally, and I was 21 at the time, so I guess you naturally think that you might get that opportunity again in another 4 years. You'll be older and hopefully playing better, and part of you thinks that'll happen. So 2016 came along, and we were tracking really well as a team, and the group was very competitive. At the time of Olympic selection, I was just on the outer, so I was picked as a reserve. We had 3 travelling reserves who went away, but we didn't stay in the village, so we stayed in an Airbnb outside the village, and you could be called upon to play if there was a tournament-ending injury through any part of the tournament, which that in itself was very mentally challenging. You obviously go away, you have to be switched on and ready to go at any moment, but ultimately you're waiting on an injury of a teammate to get a call up. So that was probably one of the toughest, mentally challenging moments of my sporting career, to work out how do we go about this. You've got to stay up and about and positive, but you're also hurting, and it's hard to watch your team playing, and when they lose, you think, oh, could I have helped? And if they win, you're obviously happy, but you're a bit disappointed that you're not out there. So yeah, it was a really tough moment, and I think the group of us that were on the outside, we tried to make the best of the situation, and that meant, like, we were in Rio, so trying to experience as much of that as we could. We're still at an Olympics. Let's try to experience getting to watch as many sports as we could, and we did that, and sort of made the best of that tough situation.
At that event, were you still held to really high account by the coaching staff and stuff? Obviously reserves, so you're not in that core squad, but are the physios and all that still kind of checking on your diet and how much you're exercising, and you're not kind of pigging out all the like nice food in Rio and stuff like that?
Yeah, so we actually stayed with the team physiologist. So there were the three athletes, and then she was sort of the one on the outside with us. So, I mean, she obviously understood that we were in a really tough position as well. So we had to find that balance between mentally relaxing and then also keeping in good shape to perform if we were called upon. To be like, it's hard to expect much of the coaches and the physios and all that at that time, because ultimately their focus is on the 16 girls that are playing. So we really did have to take a lot of it on ourselves and be pretty disciplined to do all the right things if we got that call up. So pre-game, each game of the tournament, we had our little group of three, and we basically took ourselves for training sessions on the side pitch and our running sessions and our gym sessions. And yeah, we had to be pretty self-motivated and self-disciplined to do it ourselves, because ultimately we weren't the focus, and all the focus did have to be put into those 16 that were playing. So it was really upon ourselves to do the right things.
Man, a situation like that, like you said, it's just got to be so hard to keep your head up, I suppose. And quitting hockey a year later, was that a big reason why that Olympic situation? I know you said you were kind of stopped being excited by the sport, but Olympics specifically, was that a big factor?
I don't think it was the defining factor. It was obviously a really disappointing year. It was a tough experience, but I think, we then did have a bit of a changeover in coaching staff and whatnot in the year, the following year after the Olympics. So I hoped that would sort of reinvigorate my passion for hockey. And I guess it didn't. I think it was probably time for me. It'd probably been coming for quite a while, and it was really just admitting to myself that I wasn't as happy as I used to be, and I guess the fear of letting down family, friends who know me as the hockey player and want me to achieve and do all the things. But and that was one of the hardest decisions, and the fear of letting people down. But in the end, and I'm forever thankful to my parents, and back at that time and still to this day, their biggest thing is for me to be happy and do what's going to make me happy. And as once I sort of got that off my chest and felt that stepping away was the best thing for me, I had their full support. And to be honest, certainly do not regret it at all. Haven't really looked back, and I think once I made that decision, it was a huge weight that was lifted off.
Yeah, not in terms of that decision specifically, but obviously you've on completely different kind of career path now. But is there anything during your hockey career that you think you might have changed if you could have had your time again?
Not just specifically. I think one of the things I was always told as a hockey player and as an athlete, still like I was probably quite conservative I was afraid of making mistakes, and if I was to go back now and have my career again, I think I would have thrown a little bit more caution to the wind in the way that I played, been a little less afraid of making those mistakes, just play with a bit more freedom. I always played my best when I was playing free and not worried about things and just having a crack. And I probably didn't do that for quite enough of my career, and it's something I'm trying to really do now, and we'll talk about it a bit later, but going into football and being in an environment that I feel really supported and am able to just play with freedom and enjoy myself. If I was to go back to the start of my hockey career, I probably would have tried to put a little less pressure on myself and just enjoy it for what it was.
That's completely fair enough. And I was having a little dig through the archives and stumbled across a player profile of yours in 2012 from your time in hockey. And you said if you were doing anything else apart from hockey that you'd be playing some of the sports such as soccer or cricket, but of course playing footy. Obviously there wasn't really a pathway for women in 2012, but that's a big step, isn't it? Like a complete jump away from the norm for you.
Yeah, well, exactly right. The pathway thing was probably one of the biggest reasons why I didn't go straight into football. Mum always said that if I was born a boy, I would have played footy 100%. And I guess because, there wasn't that pathway in place back when I was growing up, football wasn't really an option for if I wanted to achieve at that really high level. So, but I always did love having a kick of the footy. We used to tour with the hockey team with a Sharon, and we'd kick it around at warm-ups, and it was always something I really did love, and to be able to now have that opportunity that I'd finished hockey to jump into footy, I feel pretty lucky that I get to do that. And
it's just kind of living the dream. I suppose it's a bit of a cliche. All the AFL women's and women's Aussie rules players say it, whatever level they're at. But is that something, do you think it is a cliche, or is it truly for you living the childhood dream, getting to play footy week in, week out as a woman?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably my living the dream was playing hockey for Australia. That was my ultimate dream. And I think now footy's a little bit more of, this is the time I can have a bit more fun and relax just a little bit more. And whether it's at AFLW level or VFLW level, trying to keep that bit of the let's play for enjoyment, let's play for fun as the most important bit. Currently at VFL, as I was talking to you before, we still all work full time. Train twice a week and play on the weekend. So it's certainly not the glamorous lifestyle of being a football player for your living. But and even the girls, and at my time in North Melbourne with AFLW and the girls still playing in AFLW, there's very few of them that are solely footballers. They're still doing all the side stuff to get by. So I think we certainly are very lucky to have those opportunities. I think there's still a little way to go before we can fully say that we're playing football for a living, and that's the dream.
And obviously, like you mentioned, playing at North Melbourne in the AFLW a couple years ago. So I feel like watching a hockey game, you can't really say, oh, she'd be good at footy. Like you can't really see like a big kick or something, because it just doesn't happen in footy, obviously. So what are the kind of skills, traits that saw you able to get picked up by the Roos?
Yeah, it's still a bit of an interesting one of how that even came about. Once I stopped playing hockey, I decided that I'd go play sport again for the love of playing sport, and that was to go play football. And I was the plan was just to play club football over in Perth, where I was still living. And before I'd sort of even made that public, I got a message on Facebook from the North recruiter saying, hey, any chance you want to come play football? And he's very good at his job. I think he had done a little bit of research. And at that stage, and still in the first couple of years of AFLW, recruiters were looking for, I guess, elite athletes rather than elite footballers, with the hope of being able to train the football stuff in, but to have those, the elite mindset and, the professional attributes in training, that was all going to be something that they were looking forward to bring in to their team. I guess in terms of skills that could transfer, I'm a relatively, I'm 160 centimetres, quite small, short, close to the ground. In hockey, you're always in that bent over sort of position. So for me, being good at ground balls in football, that's sort of pretty transferable. Any sports where you've got a bit of hand-eye coordination is always going to help as well. But in terms of the actual footy skills, like kicking and handballing, marking, that was something that they kind of had to take a bit of a risk on and hope that they could develop that down the track.
Did they bring you on for a trial before they officially signed you up? I'm guessing sure they would have, yeah?
Yeah, not really, to be honest. I flew over before they signed me, more just to sort of tour the club, to meet them in person. I remember we had a kick on the basketball court, so I had like casual shoes on, and we just had a real casual kick of the footy. Turns out, Laura Kane, who is at North Melbourne as one of the high up operations managers, she actually coached me for my couple of games at uni high in the school footy competition. So she knew a little bit of that I had some sort of football ability, and I think she might have had a little bit of a word to the recruiter and said that I've got something to work with. But yeah, it was more the chat, more that, they were really keen on recruiting good people, and I guess good athletes. And it was more the character chat, I guess. And they kind of took that little bit of a risk, and went from there.
Yeah, I guess so. And there's a bit of a video on YouTube of you and a couple of other Hockeyroos from like 11 years ago, like this blurry video of having a kick on some random hockey
in Argentina, I think that was. Yeah.
Maybe they did a bit of scouting from that. But,
maybe.
Were you fully, like, completely retired? Any more hockey's out of the question at that stage, or was it still hiatus?
At that stage, I was still sort of on a break. And then I don't think I officially retired till a bit later in 2018. I think it was about 6 months or so after I sort of stepped away from the team. But yeah, I think in my mind, the retirement decision was then just something that I had to do to like officially get like put it to the side. But in my mind, I don't think I was ever going to go back to hockey at that level. And I was pretty happy to move on and try something else.
And I guess you're kind of on the hunt for jobs at that stage, because professional hockey player, but now obviously there's not much full professionalism going on in women's footy at this stage.
Yeah, so I was I started working in the hockey program. I was essentially a full-time athlete. I didn't really work until my last year that I was in the program, and at that stage I was working in a bakery, getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was making cakes and as a pastry cook. And so that was my first taste of working life, basically. And then I finished playing hockey, moved back to Melbourne with when I got the opportunity with the Kangaroos, and moved back. All my family was still here, so that worked out really well. And then it was, well, football's not going to support me. I haven't made millions of dollars playing hockey, so yes, got to go see what I'm going to do for work. And the opportunity popped up to sort of jump into a bit of hospitality, and sort of ran with that. And
Just diving back into hockey just for one sec, we spoke about how hockey's kind of not really widely watched in Australia, and being a professional women's athlete, how does kind of Hockey Australia get the money to pay all you guys as professionals?
Well, it's through all the sports commission. So because it's an Olympic sport, there's a lot of funding through the sports commission to hopefully win a gold medal at the Olympics. And so that's where most of that came from. We're fortunate enough to get some grants through the sports commission that if you were smart with, you were able to sort of manage the money. And it was enough to get by on if you were smart.
Yeah. Now going back to Kangaroos, a bit back out of hockey. So being in this like really good team at the time, kind of in the mix for a premiership, having never really played the sport at any kind of decent level, apart from like taking speckies with your dad in the lounge room.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the pressure of that. It's got to be enormous. Kind of coming into this, I guess there are a few people like you coming from other sports, but still the pressure's got to be huge.
Yeah. When the decision to go to the Kangaroos was made, there are actually a couple of other clubs that were interested as well. So I think football clubs start to talk, and there are a couple of other recruiters that messaged me as well. And so it was a bit of a toss up as to where I'd go. And at that stage, I sort of catch a little bit of wind of North Melbourne that they were going to recruit pretty heavily and get a pretty star-studded team. And that was part of the decision. Do I go to a club that is going to be really, really strong, and I'm going to have to, compete against the best to get a game, or I could maybe go to a club that's not quite as strong and maybe get a game a bit easier. In the end, I wanted to go and put myself against the best and really challenge myself. And there's a little bit of pressure but there's also not pressure. Like no one was really expecting much of me. Like I haven't really played, like anything's kind of a bonus. So in the end it was about going to a different environment, seeing how another elite sport operates, and getting to train and play a couple of games alongside some of the best players in the competition. Just got to be grateful for that opportunity.
Do you mind saying who those clubs were? A couple of those other clubs that were interested in you, or is that got to down?
I spoke to Melbourne and to the Bulldogs. The recruiters got on, and everyone tries to pitch what's going to be best for you, and it's just about weighing up at the time. There's no, I guess, you don't know until you actually make one of those decisions which one's going to be the best. And in the end, I decided to go with the Roos, and got to be grateful for that opportunity.
Big decision not to go with the team you support, though, Melbourne. Eh?
Oh, I know. Yeah, I think part of Dad was, my dad's a Melbourne supporter and I'm a Melbourne supporter. So, I mean, that would have been nice as well. I think, it's, as I said at the time, they're all trying to offer you different things, and I play, and my family live in North Melbourne. The Arden Street was less than a K down the road. It was quite appealing to go to a club that, I knew a lot of the really, some of the best players in the competition would be going to. It's all, they throw a lot of recruiters, they throw a lot of things out at you, and it's at the, just trying to put them all together and work out what's going to be the best option for you. And as I said, you don't really know until you actually make one of those decisions. And you just got to run with whichever one you do take.
And eventually being cut by the Roos, unfortunately, do you feel that you're a bit hard done by obviously being in a good team but not really getting much of a shot at it? You played a couple of games, but that was it really, and then you were gone. So do you feel it's a bit unfair on you?
I've got some mixed emotions with that experience. I certainly don't feel disappointed with any of what I put into it. I gave it my absolute all. Still to this day, they say that, I was one of the hardest workers that they've seen, and coming from that elite environment, that was something that I knew that I could really bring. I didn't have as much of the football knowledge or skill, but I had the work ethic, and I think the only bit that really I felt a little bit let down by was that I was there willing to put more time in and wanting to improve, and I didn't feel that I was maybe supported as much as I could have to improve in that way. But that's just the way it is. That's the learning experience. As I say, I'm grateful for that opportunity to even have had it. And I certainly learned a lot from that time. And I guess in that door closing, it opened up another one with Essendon, and that's one that I've really run with.
And Essendon, obviously my team, but Vflw, it's the kind of highest level for Essendon at the moment. Obviously not having an AFLW team. So what's the culture of VFLW team like compared to an AFLW team? Obviously, neither of them completely professional, obviously, but VFLW a step down.
Yeah. I guess that was part of the appeal in a way for me to go to a club that only had a VFL team. Not saying only is a bad thing, but there wasn't that pressure of the AFLW. I had been in this high pressure sporting environment for 10 years. I was quite keen just to go somewhere where I could really just play for fun and relax a little bit and maybe not be so strict with everything I did, which I had been for most of my life. And it was still quite an elite culture, but also just that little bit of a step back and let's relax and let's have a little bit more fun and not be so hard on myself to take things so seriously. And I think in the end, that's why I thrived in that environment in 2019.
And I've heard winning the best and fairest that year, obviously, and you knocked back some offers to go step back up to the AFLW level, and I'm guessing that's just because you want to stay at this kind of more chilled out environment of the VFLW, I presume.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it. After having a good season, a couple of the teams came knocking again, and I had to weigh up, like, why am I doing this? Am I playing to try to play AFLW again and get a bit of that profile back and try to play at the absolute elite, or am I actually really just happy in an environment that I know is really supportive of me, that really values what I've done, that I'm really happy in, and that season was sort of the happiest I'd been playing sport in a very long time, and at that stage I was like, well, why do I want to give that up for the unknown of going to another club? I'm still the Essendon program. I think the coaches are excellent. The the facilities, particularly now with the hangar, are amazing as well. Like, in terms of that, it actually wasn't much of a step down, I didn't feel, from an AFLW club, and it just was that little bit removed pressure, and and I was keen just to sort of keep, I guess, the good vibes go. I was happy, and why would I give that up?
And again, I'll be told off by some of the listeners if I don't ask this, but who were some of those teams in for you at AFLW level in 2019?
It was I think Melbourne might have come back again, and there was Collingwood, and there were a couple of others, but you don't know. To be fair, I actually shut the thoughts down quite quickly, and so you don't know how genuine those interests are. I think there'd be the initial chats, and then they would weigh up whether you're sort of the right fit for the program. But where my mindset was at that stage, it all, I did shut it down pretty quickly, and was pretty set on just staying with Essendon at that time.
And we've spoken about AFLW expansion a bit off air, and it's a big topical issue at the moment. So are you planning to stay with the Bombers until they get a team in by 2023?
Yeah, so obviously we're pretty hopeful that we might get a license by the end of 2022. So for that next following season. And that's the decisions that are going to have to be made sort of at the end of the year. I'm pretty happy with the season that I've been having so far, but I've also really loved the opportunity to get to be a leader at Essendon this year, which is probably something that I wouldn't maybe have got if I'd gone to another AFLW club. So I'm really, really enjoying getting to develop that part of my game and I guess me as a person. So with the thoughts of a license coming hopefully in the next year or so, it's very tempting to stay with the group. But they're just decisions that will have to come at the end of the year. Right now, the focus is on winning this week, hopefully. And, we've still probably got to win the last couple of games to make finals. So we're just trying not to get too far ahead of ourselves.
The people who are against the AFLW fully expanding, firstly, then mostly all have teams already in the AFLW, but their whole argument usually is that the talent pool is going to be too diluted. Is that something that you agree, disagree with? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's certainly a very valid point, if you're going to bring in another 2, 3, 4 teams, that's another, couple of hundred girls that you have to find who are up to the level. So it certainly is one of the reasons that's completely valid as to why it hasn't expanded so quickly. But we are seeing more and more talent coming through, the girls that are coming through the pathways now and who are 18 playing in the NAB series. Their skill is incredible. So it's not going to take long for that talent to come through, and I believe for the teams to be filled, and to be able to compete at a really strong level.
And before we get into the final question for the main chat, mixing it up a bit, something that we haven't really asked before on the show, but is there anything that we haven't really covered that you'd like to open up on or say at all?
No, not particularly. I mean, we've pretty comprehensively covered the sporting life. I think, the longer I've gone on, the more it's about, trying to find, the doing what makes you happy, the enjoyment in things, whether that's in sport or even, in my working life at the moment too. It's like, well, am I actually passionate about this? Is it making me happy? Am I enjoying it? And if it's not, well, then you've got to sort of assess these things. So I think, through my hockey experience and now moving into footy, and as I said, with the support of my family and as well, I think the biggest thing for me is just to do what's going to make you happy, and I'll sort of try to carry that through with whatever I do now.
And you kind of covered it there, but I've got to ask it because we always ask it at the end of the show. Is there a kind of life philosophy that you go by? I can kind of tell that you don't really do things by half measures, really, from what I've gained from this chat. But have you got a kind of mantra or anything that you make all your decisions by and guide your decisions?
Yeah, I think, as you said, it's pretty much touched on, to do something that will make you happy, something that you enjoy, and as you said, I probably don't do things by halves. If I commit to something, I commit to it pretty hard, and I think that's a good way to live your life. If you're going to go for it, and then do something that makes you happy.
Yeah, I like that. That's good stuff. Always good to end the show on with a bit of deep thinking, but it's not quite the end of the show, of course, because at the very end, we, of course, have the Where Do We Begin quiz. We're actually going to record this quiz in a couple of days, but for you people at home listening to the show, it's going to feel like no time for everyone's favourite part of the show, of course, the Where Do We Begin quiz. Georgia, you pumped up?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and we have got a special guest, like I mentioned in the intro. It's Scott from the Lunchtime Catch-Up podcast, my favourite Bombers podcast going round. Welcome, Scott. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Thank you so much. Good to be here. I'm always nervous on quizzes because I'm not historically good at them, but we'll see how we go. But it's all in the spirit of fun.
Yes, of course. It doesn't really test really useful knowledge, this kind of quiz, but it's a bit of fun anyway. So I hope you guys both go well. It's been a big build-up to this, so I hope it's actually worth the wait. I doubt it will be, but anyway, we'll get into question 1. So, of course, your name's your buzzer. 5 questions, all vaguely related to Georgia and her life and career. So, question 1, your name's your buzzer. So, am I correct in saying, Georgia, 27th of May, 92 is your birthday?
Yes, you've done your stalking well.
Thank you. So, another thing that happened on the 27th of May, 92. So, Uncle Charlie Osborne, a musician and fiddler from the Appalachian Mountains of Southwest Virginia, died on the 27th of May, 1992. So, what more well-known instrument is the fiddle actually the same instrument as?
Georgia. Violin.
Correct. Nailed it. Well done. Good stuff. Of course, Uncle Charlie Osborne. Doubt either of you two have heard of him. I haven't myself. Had to do a bit of deep digging. Died at 101, so lived a pretty good life, old
Good innings.
Charlie.
Good innings.
Oh,
very good innings. And
I made the fatal mistake of doing half an hour research on Essendon history here. So and not fiddler history. So,
well, I think you might have just wasted 30 minutes there, Scott. Sorry about that. But if anyone accosts you on the street asking you for a fun fact about Uncle Charlie Osborne, he actually played a right-handed fiddle with his left hand. So there you go. Fun little
talented man.
Talented man. We'll move to question 2. So this is the closest to the pin question. Georgia, we mentioned in our interview that when you found out about your call-up for the Hockeyroos, you were on your way on the tram from Olympic Park to Melbourne Central. Is that right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. All right. So this is the closest to the pin question. You guys are both Melbourne people, so hoping you can get close to this one. So how long does it take, according to Google Maps, to walk from Olympic Park to Melbourne Central via Swanston Street?
Scott, 25 minutes.
25 minutes is incorrect, but it's closest to the pin. I'll give Georgia a shot.
An hour and a half.
Oh, no.
Scott is much, much closer. It's 35 minutes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 35 minutes.
There you go. Fast walking.
Anyway, Scott's levelled this scores. It's 1-1. Question 3. So you made your Hockeyroos debut on the 28th of May 2009, I believe. So I'm going to read out the lyrics to the song that was number 1 in Australia on that date. So you can buzz in whenever you want and name the song to get the points. So there's a little spoken intro, which I'll just skip over. So here are the lyrics. Gotta get that. Gotta get that. Gotta get that. Gotta get that. Boom, boom, boom. Gotta get that. Boom, boom, boom. Gotta get that. Boom, boom, boom.
Georgia. It's the Black Eyed Peas.
Yeah, that's correct. But I'll need the name of the song for the point.
Nah.
Oh, okay. Do you want me to keep going, Scott, or do you want to buzz in?
Look, I think you're going to need to get going with, Black Eyed Peas.
Oh, I'll keep going. So there's a couple more. Got to get that boom, boom, boom. Got to get that boom, boom, boom. That boom, boom, boom. That boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Now we get into the good lyrics. Yo, I got that hit to beat the block. You can get that bass on below. I got that rock and roll, that future flow, that digital spit, next level visual shit. I got that boom, boom, boom.
Is it boom, boom, power? Boom.
Georgia, you've already buzzed yourself out and got it incorrect. So Scott's still got a chance.
You didn't say that I was out of it.
Sorry about that. But I've got to play by the rules here. If you buzz in and
you
get it
didn't
incorrect.
explain the rules.
I apologise. That's my fault. But I can't give you the point. Unfortunately, Scott, do you want to have a crack? Do you want to get a cheap point? Play a bit dirty.
I could go boom, boom. That's how I go.
Scott has absolutely got the point. That might be a bit unlucky for Georgia there. Might put a poll up on our Instagram story, see who was in the right there. But
that's fair.
So apologise for that, Georgia. Anyway, Scott's got the point. Going ahead 2-1. Big fan of the Black Eyed Peas, Scott.
I just remember that "Shut Up" song, and that's about it. But I can't say I was a little bit of a punk head in my younger days, so it's kind of skipped me by the top 40 range.
Yeah, the grand final. They performed at the grand final a few years ago, I believe. But move to question 4 anyway. 1-1. Very tight quiz, this one. So 205 caps for the Hockeyroos, Georgia. So Route 205 is a local highway in New Brunswick that runs for 38.7 kilometres along the St. John River in Madawaska County. In what country is this highway?
Scott.
Canada. Nailed it. Absolutely correct. 3-1, extending the lead. Move to the last question, but George is actually still in with a shot because the last question is a who am I question. So I'm going to start with a 5-point clue, work all the way down to a 1-point clue. And once you buzz in, you can't buzz in again until the other person
Okay, good to explain that rule, yeah.
I usually explain that in this section. I don't usually explain it before. But anyway, So, yeah, both of you in with a shot. So 5 clues all leading to who I am. So we'll start with the 5-point clue. I was born on the 27th of May, the same birthday as you, in 1975 in Clavering in Essex in England. Move to the 4-point clue. Might be a bit tricky from there. So for 4 points, my parents ran a pub/restaurant, the Cricketers, while I was growing up. I left school at 16 with qualifications in art and geology before going on to attend Westminster Technical College. Move to the 3-point clue. Georgia needs to get it here to win. I'm now a member of the Order of the British Empire and married to Juliet Norton and have 5 children myself. Poppy Honey Rose, Petal Blossom Rainbow, Daisy Boo Pamela. Georgia.
Jamie Oliver.
Jamie Oliver.
Isn't there a pedal?
Is absolutely correct. Got the points. Very well done. Good stuff. Good comeback there. Despite a bit of adversity in question 2, you still managed to get the win. So good stuff, Georgia. Congratulations. Big fan of Jamie Oliver.
I do enjoy his cooking. Yeah, I've got a few of his books.
You've got a bit of a cooking blog, I saw. Hey.
Yeah. I haven't done much on it for years, no, but I did.
Yeah.
In my hockey days, I had a bit of time to fill about on with some food stuff. But not so much time recently.
Good stuff. Anyway, that just about wraps us up for the quiz and just about wraps us up for the show in its entirety. So, Scott, first off, thank you very much for being our special guest on this quiz. Great to have you filling in for Lockie. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. I realise now, because we're doing this over Zoom, that I should have had a higher seat. I feel like an Oompa Loompa, but that's all right. But thank you so much. It was all good and fun, and best of luck, Georgia, for the girls. Sorry about today. A bit of a heartbreaker, but first half of the year obviously showed what they can do, and let's see if we can get it home.
Yeah, finish strong in the last 2 games. That would be good.
And Georgia, thank you very much for coming on the show. Devoted a lot of time over, 4 days or something, doing this bit of a marathon podcast. But thanks very much for your generosity. It was a pleasure having you on.
No, thank you very much for having me. It's been fun.
Thank you so much to Georgia Nanscawen again for coming on the show. It was truly, I say this from the bottom of my heart, it was truly an honour, a pleasure, a delight having you on the show. I really enjoyed it. I hope all you listeners did as well. And of course, a huge thank you. I really appreciate Scott McNeice coming on the show. He's a legend, Scott McNeice, from the Lunchtime Catch-Up podcast, of course. Never mind the best Essendon podcast going around. I reckon it might be one of the best footy podcasts going around, regardless of whether you're an Essendon fan. I think you'll really enjoy some of the opinions and takes and the way they present the show. Scott and Grant, the Lunchtime Catch-Up podcast, is just amazing. It's really good stuff. So by the time you listen to this, they will more than likely have the review of the Essendon North Melbourne game out on your favourite podcast app, or maybe by Monday night, I'd say they would have it out. So go check that out, your favourite podcast app, the Lunchtime Catch-Up podcast. It's truly one of the best footy podcasts out there. One quick thing, just before I wrap up the show finally, you guys would know, obviously Lockie not being here. Lockie and I are very busy guys. We really don't get much free time. We're working 5 jobs between us, both doing full-time uni, doing our sports, of course, doing the podcast, which takes a lot of effort, coming into exams for uni as well at the moment. And we are starting a big new series that you guys are going to love, starting next week. It's taken a lot of effort to get off the ground, but we're really proud to kick it off next week. So we made a decision between the two of us to not take any grubby advertising money from any kind of company or organisation that we don't really believe in, and we don't want to take money for the sake of just making a bit of coin and promoting a perhaps unethical or dodgy business. So what we've done instead is we've started up a Buy Me a Coffee page. I'm sure you guys all know the basic gist of this. So what you can do is you can head to buymeacoffee.com/where do we begin. That's buymeacoffee.com/where do we begin. You can make a donation to us. It can be a weekly, a monthly, or you can donate however you want, or it can just be a one-off thing, which is what most of you will probably like to do. You can donate as little as $2 to us, or as much as you want, really. But we'd appreciate that so much, because we feel like we've got a really good quality podcast here. We want to keep giving you weekly episodes, this kind of top of the range editing and production that we have here. It sounds really good. And I think we've got some great guests and a great show here. So if you want to help us keep it going, which is quite a struggle at times, head to buymeacoffee.com/where do we begin and donate as little as $2. Maybe skip the mid-strength $15 beer at the footy next weekend and head there and give us $2, whatever you want. As little as you want, as much as you want. It's up to you. Of course, you don't have to if you don't want to. If you haven't got the money or just don't really want to give us money, that's totally fine too. But if you do want to give us money, head to buymeacoffee.com/where do we begin to support the show that we hope that you love as much as we love making it. But anyway, that just about wraps it up, really. That just about ends it. So you can head to WDWB Pod on Twitter and Instagram to check out our socials, and Where Do We Begin on Facebook and YouTube, of course, when we've got some great content going through there at the moment. It's really good stuff. And of course, if you can't donate money or don't want to donate money, something that would be kind of the next level of grateful, we'd be really grateful for this. Leaving us a 5-star review and just telling your mates about the show. We'd really, really appreciate it. We want to help the show grow. We want to get it big, especially with this big series that we've got coming up starting next week. Can't wipe the smile off my face thinking about it, honestly. Anyway, guys, I'll leave it there. Thank you so much for listening. We really do love you all. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week, where we'll kick off this huge Where Do We Begin series.